What if everything you've ever been told about the gods was written by the winners? Not shaped by truth, not preserved in fairness, but sharpened into a weapon, one that cuts away memory, distorts motives, and leaves only a single version of history standing. Before the thunderbolt ever split the sky, before Olympus rose like a crown above the world, there was another order. Older than law, older than justice, older even than the idea of good and evil. It was a world governed not by kings, but by forces, not by morality, but by necessity. And when that world fell, it didn't vanish peacefully. It was torn apart, buried beneath layers of myth, its voices silenced, its legacy twisted. This is not the story of Zeus the hero. This is the story of what came before him, and what it cost to erase it. Long before Olympus, the universe belonged to the Titans, children of the primordial sky Uranus and the earth itself, Gaia. They were not rulers in the way we understand kings. They were embodiments of reality, time, memory, ocean, light. Among them stood Cronus, not as a tyrant, but as time itself made conscious. His rule was not chaotic. It was inevitable. The world under the Titans did not need justice, because nothing existed outside the order they maintained. Birth followed death. Creation followed destruction. Everything moved in cycles, and nothing questioned its place within them. But even in a world defined by inevitability, there was fear, and that fear began with a prophecy. Cronus, who had once overthrown his own father Uranus to establish this order, was told that he too would fall, betrayed by his own child. It is here that history begins to shift, because what came next has always been told in a single way, that Cronus, in his paranoia, devoured his children one by one. A monster king consuming his offspring to cling to power. But consider this. If you are time itself, if you are the force that ensures the universe does not collapse into chaos, and you are told that your destruction will come from within your own bloodline, what choice do you have? Is it cruelty or preservation? One by one, the children of Cronus and Rhea were taken from the moment of their birth and absorbed back into the cycle. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. Not destroyed, but contained, returned to the source from which they came. Only one child escaped this fate. Hidden away by Rhea, raised in secrecy, protected from the reach of time itself. His name would become synonymous with power. His story would define an age. His narrative would overwrite everything that came before. That child was Zeus. When Zeus returned, he did not come as a savior. He came as a challenger. And the war that followed, the Titanomachy, was not a simple rebellion. It was a collision between two versions of reality. On one side, the Titans, ancient, unyielding, representing a universe governed by inevitability. On the other, the Olympians, younger, ambitious, representing a world that could change, evolve, and perhaps be controlled. For 10 years, the cosmos itself became a battlefield. Mountains were torn from the earth and hurled like weapons. Oceans boiled. The sky split open under the force of clashing powers. This was not just war, it was transformation. But even Zeus could not win alone. The Titans were too vast, too fundamental. So he descended into the deepest prison of existence, the abyss known as Tartarus, and freed the beings his predecessors had locked away, the Cyclopes and the Centaurs. Creatures of immense, terrifying power, feared even by the Titans. And here lies another fracture in the story. Zeus is celebrated for this act, praised for freeing the oppressed. But what if those beings were imprisoned for a reason? What if unleashing them was not an act of justice, but desperation? With their help, the tide of war shifted. The Cyclopes forged Zeus his thunderbolt, a weapon unlike anything the world had seen. Not natural, not inevitable, but engineered destruction. The Centaurs, with their 100 arms, rained devastation upon the Titans, overwhelming forces that had once seemed eternal. And slowly, inevitably, the old world began to break. When the war ended, it did not end with peace. It ended with imprisonment. The Titans were cast into Tartarus, bound in chains, sealed beneath layers of reality so deep that even memory struggled to reach them. Among them were beings who had not even fought, entities whose only crime was existing in a world that no longer had room for them. The narrative calls this justice. But look closer, and it begins to resemble something else: erasure. Consider Atlas, forced to carry the weight of the heavens on his shoulders for eternity. Not killed, not forgiven, simply repurposed into a symbol of punishment. Or Prometheus, who sided with Zeus, who helped shape the new order, and yet was betrayed. Chained to a rock, his liver devoured daily as punishment for giving humanity the gift of fire. These are not the rewards of loyalty. They are warnings. In the new world, power did not just demand obedience. It demanded submission. And what of those still buried beneath Tartarus? The ancient ones who remember a time before Olympus, before thunderbolts, before kings? Their voices do not reach us. Their stories are not told. Because history, as it survives, is not a record of truth. It is a record of victory. Zeus did not just defeat the Titans. He replaced them. He reshaped the universe in his image, transforming forces into personalities, inevitability into hierarchy. The world became something new, not because it had to, but because someone made it so. And that is the real story of the Titanomachy. Not a battle between good and evil, but a transition between systems. A shift from a universe that simply was to a universe that could be ruled. The Titans were not monsters. They were the old world, flawed, perhaps, but foundational. And the Olympians were not heroes. They were the new world, dynamic, powerful, and willing to do whatever it took to ensure their version of reality endured. So the next time you hear the story of Zeus and his victory, ask yourself this: whose voice are you hearing? And whose has been silenced? Because somewhere, deep beneath the foundations of myth, beneath the layers of rewritten history, the Titans are still there, waiting, remembering. And if history has taught us anything, it's that no victory is ever truly permanent.